Hello, my name is Caroline Stokes. I am the CEO of Forward, and I have brought together numerous brains from around the world. And today I've stayed local in Vancouver, and I'm more than happy to say that I have Kirk LaPointe here from Business in Vancouver. He is the editor-in-chief and publisher of Business in Vancouver, the editorial vice president of Glacier Media, and the adjunct professor ethics and leadership at UBC School of Journalism, Media and Writing. Kirk, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
So it's election season, it's going to go crazy. So we're going to get through this interview really, really quickly because I know that you've got so many great ideas. I'm really keen to find out from you, what are you stoked about in our new world, this new era that we're in?
Well, I will tell you, it's a little difficult to get up for all of this every day.
Right.
I think that you have to figure out a way to, frankly, take a lot of self-care in order to make sure that you have all of the machinery necessary in order to face all of this, because it's unprecedented, of course.
Yeah.
But there are some really interesting things that you can discover out of all of this, and I think what we've been quite excited about at Business in Vancouver is just the fact that we can accelerate our digital approach, and that we're actually doing really well with things like podcasting, a little bit like what you're doing here, in order to basically shine a light on what other people are doing in the province, the country, and the wider world through COVID, and how they're coping with it. And you're really finding some pretty amazing stories. There are some great inventive people who are innovating in this space right now, and so it's quite exciting. It is just though very, very daunting day by day, because nobody can predict anything really within more than about 2 or 3 hours. So it's quite funny, in that respect.
Yeah, it is. It is. So so based on the unpredictability and the heaviness of it all, what are you is there anything that you're particularly excited about right now?
Well, you have to see this. I know it's cliche, it's a real cliche, but you have to see it as an opportunity. If you don't see it as that, then I think you're just pretty much ready to fold up the tent. So you've got to see that. So, here I am about 4 decades into my journalism career, and I've managed places for about 35 of those years. And to me, it's just like a really rich opportunity in order to reinvent what you do, how you serve, what your contributions are, how do you enable people to talk to each other and to understand each other a bit better, what are some new obligations that you feel as a result of events that have taken place in the world, and how do you package all of that properly, and kind of stay in your lane. Don't stray too much about that, but serve your lane very, very well. And so no, I get quite excited by it. I mean, I come into the office every day. I mean, mostly people are working from home, but I'm in my office every day. It's quite isolated here, but I still find that I'm working quite hard and successfully here, as opposed to working from home.
Good. So you mentioned reinvention. So I'm curious to know how, based on your experience, you're isolated in your office. You have so many conversations with leaders around the province in British Columbia, and you probably have a further outreach out in Ottawa and Toronto and what have you. I'm really curious what you've learned on how individuals and organizations can transition the best right now.
Yeah, well, they all talk about the R word, resilience. If they don't possess it, then they're basically hooped. They're not going to be able to do it. The ones that are stodgy, the ones that are of the belief that 2021 is going to be like 2019, are really off base. And I think the better ones are accepting the fact that their operations, whether it's media or any other kind of business, parts of it won't actually ever come back. And you need to, at some point, let go, be at peace with that. Yeah. But what you have to also have is a kind of a bit of just an overall approach to say, I'm excited about new things, and I'm going to test things quickly. If they don't work, I'm going to fail fast. And if I sense opportunity, then I'm going to really dig right into it, and I'm going to allot more of my time to it. And I will say that over the last 6 months, there's probably a half dozen things I've tried that haven't worked, and I've just jettisoned them as quickly as I could when it was evident that they weren't going to work, or that they were going to take too much time, that they were going to take me away from some of the better things that I needed to do, some of the more, some of the wiser uses of my time. But I keep discovering some new things, and I keep finding things that actually are working a little bit, that are gathering audiences. In our case, of course, we need to gather advertising or subscriptions in order to pay our bills. Those types of things are emerging, but you also can't predict anything around what kind of trajectory you're going to have in the resumption of your business. It's not going to be this smooth, it's upward path. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look in a lot of ways like a series of W's. It's going to be up and down and up and down, and sometimes the steps back are going to be bigger than the steps forward. And again, you just can't let it get to you. You can't let it get to your sense of confidence, your sense of pride, your sense of fulfillment. If you do, again, you'll just go down a bit of a hole, and you won't get back out of it.
Yeah, and it's very hard to get out of that hole. Yeah, and so much has changed that it really does take a lot of effort to keep up with everything that is changing. So yeah, thank you. So one of my favorite questions, which actually inspired this whole live stream series, was John Lewis inspired Good Trouble. What good trouble are you making?
Well, look, what I've had to do with a lot of our clients is to really talk them through a bit of an act of faith that we're actually going to work together, and we're going to make things happen together. I think to some degree, everybody is guilty at times of taking for granted some of the relationships that you have, whether they're personal or in your line of work. And what I've been able to try, what I think in rather successfully in this period, is to focus in on those who we need quite a lot for our own success, and to just to deal with that, explicitly, and be quite candid about how we're dependent on them, their support, their involvement, their engagement. As far as the good trouble, the one thing that I have really taken to heart in the last number of months has been not particularly pandemic related. It's been really to do with the important discussions that are taking place around race. And so in our case, I've had to examine just our own complicitness in all of this, and try to come away with a much better game plan that involves a very broad group of contributors, of people who will participate in order to make us much more reflective. And I think I think quite candidly it was overdue. I could have done it sooner, and I regret that. But I also feel like now we're starting to make the turn properly, and it will involve a lot of people and sharing an awful lot of the agency that we have in what we're doing. I believe that also to some degree I've had to stir the pot with what a function of a newspaper is in this media environment, because I think that mistakes were made quite early in the time that the internet arrived, where newspapers didn't reshape themselves, they didn't re-engineer themselves, and they became, to some degree, quite accepting of the fact that they could just be snapshots of their website, and curate the website and put it into, on ink on paper, and that was it. In my case, with business in Vancouver, we've always held our material back for print, and that's been the first taste of it that the market gets is through the paper, and then a couple of days later we dole out the stories one by one online. But I'm taking it to a different level now. I think what I'm going to do is make peace with the fact that the newspaper arrives last in the overall fundamental consumption of media, and that there's an opportunity in finishing last, which is to provide some thought leadership that then reflects on events and doesn't necessarily reveal as much, but tries to guide the next wave of public appreciation, public affairs experience in this. So I'm really going to focus a lot more attention on cultivating commentary and trying to get a lot of our thought leaders in the province to participate in that. And so far the uptake's been excellent. I've got a couple of dozen who will help us from time to time, who are already being, paid and rewarded somewhere else. They're not doing it for the cash. What they're doing it is to get their thoughts out and to essentially use our platform in order to reach a pretty good business related audience. So I think that, that's going to, I think prompt a lot of good attention to issues in very different ways. And it's not that we're not going to do news. Of course, we're going to do tons of news, but we're going to have much more of an emphasis in print on creating kind of a views paper at times.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. It's great to hear how you're constantly thinking, understandably, or how to adapt and how to grow and how to evolve and how to make things better. So that's wonderful. Thank you. So with all of that, why is it emotionally intelligent to do that?
Why is it? Well, right now, I think during the pandemic, we've been deluged with a lot of information, but not a pile of it has made any kind of emotional connection with us. And I think we have to rethink our relationship to information as journalists. We need to probably think through a greater degree of engagement than we've had before with our audiences, and that requires really a higher EQ than we have had in the past, where it was rather simple in order to just simply create a kind of a space where you kind of dealt out information in an anodyne clinical way. I don't think you can do that any longer. So to me, you have to embrace the opportunity that comes with providing argumentation, evidence-based examination of issues that then stake a position. All of those types of things, I think, are appealing to people at a different level than just the cerebral level. So if we can do more of that, then I think that's where the EQ will surface and be much, I think, much more memorable.
Thank you for that. My final question: what one step can our viewers take to evolve into our new world?
Well, two things. I think there's more than one, but two principal things.
As many as you like.
Well, like first and foremost, I hope that people begin in this time to savor the better things and start shelving the worst. Create your own filters that are going to be very useful for you in the way that you consume information. At least that's my part of the world. And so get rid of a lot of the junk on your social media streams. Shut some stuff out. Don't indulge it. Don't even pretend it exists. So become a much more fastidious consumer of material. The corollary of that is, and I hate to say this, but you're going to need to pay for it. The era of this massive amount of free content that is somehow propelled by an organization that can cross-subsidize its digital offerings with print are coming to a close. Our print revenue has been declining, year after year for some time now. We want to make sure the paper is there, and there are a lot of people that just simply love the idea of something that's much more tactile, that's curated for them, that has a hierarchy of what's important, and it's evident, it's a nice package, and you can hang on to it for a little bit of time. But I think we're going to have to address the fact that the business model for that, and the business model overall, in order to pay for good journalism, requires that people don't get things free in the way that they have. And it's not as if we're going to, charge onerous amounts of money for it.
It's usually $2 a month or something.
Yeah.
Times,
yeah. And I think it's not going to be precipitous in terms of, killing off your bank accounts. And there'll be quite a number of us. I think it's not just us, but I think there'll be a lot who will say, listen, we can tell you like our material, but it's not enough to just simply like it. You're going to have to help us finance it, and leave the second that you don't think it's worthwhile. I mean, you're not going to be locked in for life with a 50-year subscription or something. It's going to be more of like, look, pay as you go. See what you see with us. If you don't like what we're doing, yes, by all means, show us by disconnecting, and we'll get the point. But we need this kind of a bit of a passive stream of revenue in order to pay for the things that we do. And I would think that the pandemic is going to shake out a lot of businesses. I think some mediocre restaurants will no longer exist, and I think some mediocre media organizations won't exist. I think that the ones that strive for better quality will survive, but they're going to require that there be consumers that take seriously the notion that these are predicated on business models that aren't massively subsidized outside of their subscribers and their advertisers.
Okay. So the tip here is things are going to be changing. You need to have good content so you understand what's really, really happening. Curate that list and prepare to pay. Shed a few dollars to get the right content in your inbox or in your hands.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to pick on designer coffee and things like that, but I mean, we're really, we're not talking about a new, a mortgage on your house to pay for this. It's really pretty meager, and it's largely speaking, I think, money that won't be missed by people.
Yeah, well, it's very important.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair transaction. Yeah. I'm doing that in my own life. I'm subscribing to a bunch of things that I was largely trying to grab free a year or two ago, and I want these places to succeed, and I think if people want us to succeed, then they'll need to find a way to help finance it.
I agree. I want all the content though. The Economist today had a great article. I was like, I want that. Okay, I'm going to have to buy it for $12 for 3
Yeah,
months.
I mean, The Economist is a great example, and when what happens is that when that starts, you start to get that kind of serious subscription revenue, is that it actually drives the people inside those organizations to do better and better things. I mean, there is a nice escalation that happens there that I think is really healthy. You don't want to be in a space where you're trying to harvest what you've got left in the way of advertising revenue in order to keep paying the bills and keep the lights on. And I know there's a lot of organizations that are stuck in that space right now that don't have an easy way out. For the most part, business publications are succeeding, in part because mostly people are buying them and writing off the cost as business expenses when they subscribe. But I think it's also the kind of niche material, specialized material, that's fundamental for people in understanding direction of an economy, direction of politics, perhaps direction of the markets for whatever investments they have, or the state of their RSPs, or whatever it is. They just need to know it, and so business periodicals are doing a little bit better than many of the rest of the genres out there. But you know, we're certainly not inured to difficulties. So,
well, I'm going to go and get Business in Vancouver's subscription. I'm going to do it right now.
That's great.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Caroline, lovely seeing you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.